Its claim to fame is simple: Britain's oldest brewer. But Shepherd Neame's future is arguably as bright as its past. Fresh life has been breathed into a number of its beer brands, and its expanding portfolio of 350 mainly tenanted and leased pubs is delivering strong like-for-likes, especially in food and accommodation. That success has been delivered by a chief executive in Jonathan Neame, who is not only 10 years into his time at the top, but also 12 months into his tenure as chairman of the British Beer and Pub Association, a year that has seen the end of the escalator and a cut in beer duty. BigHospitality caught up with him at his Kent HQ and asked what his reaction had been to the government finally taking notice of pub industry concerns.
Well, certainly it's been a great achievement. First cut for 40 years is something that perhaps we didn't expect. We certainly thought there was a chance of removing the escalator because it's been a very bad and destructive tax. It's not just a one-year campaign, it's been a build-up of a long-term campaign, and I think the critical learning is that we worked very well with CAMRA, with the LMR, with a whole host of different organisations across the industry who have all said enough is enough. You can't keep rising the tax on beer.
The man whose whole career has been dedicated to pubs said the positive impacts of the cut in beer tax on the industry and its ability to create jobs were still to be felt.
So the key message for the government is, if you give us a fiscal stimulus, we can create jobs and investment. And that's something indeed that my own company, Shepherd Neame, is looking at very actively. We feel it's given us a confidence boost such that we will accelerate our investment in our pubs next year. We're looking at something like 40 projects, and we believe, in tenanted and managed, that will create up to 200 jobs. So that's for a company our size, a very sizable commitment.
While the industry has the ear of decision makers, Neame is keen to discourage MROs and late night levies and to sell the benefits of a VAT cut.
You could create a very substantial number of jobs throughout the country, mainly young persons' jobs. Any government that is serious about jobs and investment needs to think very hard about that argument. The UK is in a very small minority of countries that don't give a carve-out of VAT, a lower rate of VAT for the hospitality sector. The one thing that isn't talked about too much, though, which is very important for pubs and small businesses, is the announcement to reduce the national insurance burden for the first £2,000 for small businesses. That will be a benefit to small rural pubs, and I hope at some stage the government looks to expand that and make a bigger relief.
As BBPA chair, much of his time may be spent dealing with the consultation and decision on the pubco-tenant relationship and possible statutory regulation. Neame expressed concern that the industry could become a political football, given the current uncertainty and the splits in the coalition on the subject, but his warning on the impact of further regulation was totally clear.
We don't want more regulation, we don't want more taxation, we want the burden of both to be reduced. It's a very simple message. If we do, we will create more jobs and more investment. Any regulation, any sense of more taxation is a risk for businesses, and businesses then say, we will defer the type of investment that I talked about earlier. We will suspend it until we feel more confident.
Turning to his own business, Neame admitted the last 5 years have been some of the toughest the industry and Shepherd Neame had ever faced, but he said he sensed the tide was turning.
I think that that sector of the market for premium, family, casual dining is an excellent sweet spot for country pubs and for our type of outlets. It does require investment in improving the offer and improving the experience for the consumer to be able to drive footfall. We've done a lot of that in the last 2 or 3 years. We've invested against the grain. We've got further to go. So I think we're probably more clear, more certain, subject to any future regulation, and more confident about the long-term future of this business than we have been for a while. We can't call when the upturn's going to come, but when it does come, we think that our business, and particularly this part of the world in Kent, is very well positioned to benefit from that.
Like many pubcos, Neame's firm has grown its managed side, winning awards in the process, and disposed some tenanted and leased sites. However, Neame explained the company would not focus too much on any one strategy, be it brewing, food, pubs, accommodation, or the managed or tenanted businesses.
We genuinely don't look at one company and say we want to be like them. There are so many examples of excellence in this market. Many of those examples of excellence come from our own tenants. We learn a huge amount from them. they're the ones that are leading the field in terms of sourcing local produce or innovative ways of beer retailing, etc. There are some great managed operators out there. There's some great restaurant operators out there. Some of the smaller chains that are opening up, particularly in London and the metropolitan areas, just shows how entrepreneurial this sector is. So the challenge is being able to keep up with all of these developments. It is relentlessly creative, and I think the industry really should be labelled as a creative art rather than an industrial or manufacturing sector.